If you ever looked at a cat and it became obvious to you that they cannot experience guilt because they don't have a personal identity that's separate from the universe, the cat universe, to even feel the guilt or shame, then here's an extra layer. Everything has its opposite, right? When God created light, it also darkness, right? Because light shows up first and then its opposite, no light, which we then call darkness, also has to show up because that's how this works. Now, this is true for everything, but even more interestingly, we have to identify some concepts that are entirely made up by other humans and that then consume our minds. Here's my personal example, which I find a little funny. I'm on a 250 streak of semen retention because of my neck issues. I realized that having an orgasm, like an spasm, basically, just leaves me shaking and feeling really bad. So I've been trying my hardest, my ego is trying its hardest to never, ever, ever, ever do it. And indeed, I have to thank Grace, because without this, I couldn't have done it. I was absolutely succeeding by all means at not relapsing. But what happens? I start relapsing while I sleep, right? And you could say, well, obviously you're not going to feel guilt and shame about something that clearly and objectively wasn't your fault. It's just the body doing its thing. If, I don't know, it's regulating because it's too much, right? Whatever. Well, interestingly for you, call it my conditioning, call it whatever, because I don't know the reason and it doesn't really matter. My mind was beating me up over it a lot, may I say. I was like, all this fucking effort that I'm doing for nothing just goes to waste. I try my hardest and it means nothing, because now I have to pay the consequences because I wake up agitated and just all the symptoms. And on top of that, my mind uses it to beat me up over it. Why? Because the mind is operating on duality. So it doesn't really give a shit about whether you actually have the fault or the guilt or not. Because it's operating on duality, it can also blame you even if you, opposite polarity, don't have the guilt. But when I saw it, when I saw this, the polarity absurd, then it clicked. Oh my God, this entire concept is made up. And it's like a cloud dissipated from my third eye or my vision. And I felt actual peace, a peace that transcends duality, especially a duality that is based on illusion, right? And now someone might say, well, you can't be giving this advice because then everyone will start killing people and shit like this. Well, no, because I'm talking to people who can read frequency. Your heart is open, so you don't even have those thoughts, okay? So it's a different type of, the ego can co-opt anything. And I also did it during active addiction. My ego, to convince me to continue to relapse, it was saying crazy shit we should relapse masturbating because it's healing, because we have sexual shame, and that was also a crazy good example of how the mind doesn't really care about what side of the coin of polarity to use to get you to do one thing. It will use it because it's irrelevant. So if it's saying, let's do this to heal, it has to also be saying, and that's what it actually means, let's do this to get even more sick, because as I said, I present heavy symptoms after doing the said act. So when that also hit me, it's for every thought that shows up, its opposite is also being said, just like in the terms and conditions, super hitting, we could say, then it was really easy to stop listening to my mind because it is a faulty artifact, especially because we've been taught a dualistic language, not by coincidence, may I add, but by design. But if you want my more conspiranoic side, we could say tinfoil hat on, go over to my Rumble channel and I'll see you soon.